Hi everyone. I'm going to go over today how to assemble a very large picture frame with dovetails. First off, I'm going to kind of go over everything I have on the table. I got some glue, tissues, just regular old tissues. I got a damp cloth, hammer, a little driver. Basically you can use this thing that we send you when we send you a chop, or you can use a screwdriver, a flat end screwdriver, or Phillips even. And then I got our dovetails. Our dovetails do have a tapered end on one end that goes into the hole and then a blunt end on the other. So make sure when you drive them, you got the roundish end going in. And that's pretty much all you need in a surface. I get to have the luxury of having a great big table. You may be doing this on the floor, I understand that, but instead it just means you'll be having to hunch over and be on your butt or on your knees or something if you don't have a big table. You do have some good safety features I'll kind of go over later when you are on the floor versus on a table for some safety things. Anyway, let's get started. I cannot stress this enough, so please listen at this point very, very closely. You can assemble a frame and have it not be a frame in the end. And what I mean by that is you need to start out with both of your longs in front of you off to your right or left, and both of your shorts out in front of you heading away from you. The reason you do that is because if you ever had this reverse and you have a long here and a short, and then you do a short in front of you and a long that way, when you go to put your third and fourth side together, they're not going to work. They're not going to fit. You're not going to have a frame 360 degrees around. So make sure, by all means, that you start out the way I do, two in front of you, long, two in front of you, short. So when we put our first joint together, what we do is we kind of just start out by looking at what are we going to be dealing with without any glue or anything going. I get this perfectly lined up, and I kind of see on the back edge what I have here as far as, am I straight on this back corner back here? Do I look good in the front? Yep, I look pretty dang good and even. So what I like to do is I like to get it just as perfect as I can get it, and then I like to just tip this one forward to myself carefully. Try not to move it out of place, and then I apply a lot of glue. Don't be chintzy on your glue. Get a lot of glue on that corner. Let it ooze out, make a little bit of a mess, get something underneath you that you don't care, and just get it good and wet. Dab it with your finger, kind of get it all over the wood parts to where you just got a good, healthy amount of glue down there. I like to get it off my finger so I don't spread it all over everything that I'm touching. And I tip this thing back up. Should go almost back into perfect spot. So with my left hand, I'm going to make a clamp, basically just like a C clamp that I come up over the top and I squeeze this joint together. I like to wipe off any excess glue so I can see what I got going here and everything's lined up. The hole should be perfectly aligned. And I'm going to go ahead and pound this first thumbnail in to the hole. And I'm going to take this driver and I'm going to finish it off. As I drive this, you're going to hear a sound change when I bottom out. So I'm not going to just kind of whack this thing in at once. I'm going to go kind of slow until I hear that sound change. At the bottom. So a couple little taps, but don't whack it hard at the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ever so slightly lift up on this and feel. And I definitely have a difference in height. So what I'm going to do, this is the cautious part. If you're working on the floor, you don't have to worry about this. On a table, I'm going to move this out so I can get to this joint. Don't let one of these arms fall off and ruin your frame. So I'm going to get this joint over the edge, being careful to keep these on the table. And I'm going to ever so slightly have a hand up, or a palm on the top and a palm on the bottom, and I'm just going to rotate this thing just slightly. That's a little more than I wanted, but sometimes that happens because this glue dries quick. Once you get it started free, it's going to move rather easily. So I was able to get this nice and flat. You really want to make sure a couple things, that you do that quick after you drive that first nail in. Don't fill this all the way up with the 3 nails that you have. Get 1 nail in and move that. 2 reasons. One, that glue dries pretty quickly, and like you saw, it released just there for a second, and I had to get it right where I want. So I got to do it kind of fast where I don't let that glue dry as much as I want. And if I only get 1 nail in there, I can move that. If I get all 3 of these thumbnails inside of this, I will not be able to move that anymore, and you will not be able to fix that little height difference that we would have had on the face of our frame. And that's pretty important because we would like to really have a nice flat face. Here gonna notice that oftentimes this last thumbnail leaves a little bit of a gap. That doesn't matter. The thumbnails need to be all the way in as far as we give you route out that hole versus in the very back. If there's a gap, doesn't matter. You don't have to fill that whole gap. So I like to wipe this off, get the excess glue off of the tissue. Then what I do when I rotate this, we don't want to put any stresses on this joint as best we can. So to move this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the long side and I'm just going to pull it up in the air, letting that just rest on the ground or on the table. Now as I move it over, if you're on your floor and you have a big surface, you don't even have to do what I'm about to do. You just lay this thing over and nothing happened on this joint to alter it. But I'm going to move it, so I'm going to reach out carefully, just move this thing around, get it back on the table. And I got a little bit of a height difference. It's actually absolutely flush here and just a little bit off here. So I might be able to just squeeze that, just kind of rock that out. Yeah, not much. I can't see it, I can feel it. So I'm gonna leave it alone. That's just wood being wood. This is a tree before it was a frame. So, you know, little things twist and move, and sometimes you can't have things absolutely totally straight and perfect when it comes to frames. We just do our best. So like I said, I can't see it, but I can feel it. Most people shouldn't be going up and inspecting the frame by feeling the corner anyway once it's framed. That looks really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of push this up out of my way. I'm going to move these back behind it carefully. And it's not a bad idea to move this out of your way. I have a lot of experience doing this where I feel pretty confident that I'm not going to hurt this thing having it sit here, but you could move it, get it out of your way if you wanted to. So now I'm going to do the same thing again. Get this thing lined up without glue. See what I'm about to tackle. This looks really good. Also got nice straight pieces here, so that's great. Fold this one down again. Apply my glue. Okay. Everything's lining up pretty nicely. Back edge looks good. Got no problems with that. Drag this first thumb in. Feel that joint. Better than the last one, but still gonna need to tweak it just a little bit. Careful not to let those fall off. See, I got to that one a little quicker. I wasn't talking. If there's one thing you want to be speedy at in this process, it's that point right there. I take my time with everything else I do, but getting that first one in and getting that height change adjustment, that needs to happen quickly. I'm still a little tiny bit off. I feel really good in the front, just ever so slightly off in the back again. Ah, there we go. Man, that is, I can't feel it from one side to the other. It feels perfect. That's what I'm going for right there, when possible. So, if I'm doing this, not for video, and I got a day to put my art together and get this done, I'm gonna stop right now for an hour or two. And I'm gonna well, not quite yet. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna stop and let these two joints get really solid. Just let this glue dry, come back to it in about an hour, and then do my last two joints. It's just nice to be able to allow the joints to just get really rock solid with that glue before you have to start moving things around again. So after I clean it up, now is when I would just walk away, come back in a couple of hours, and finalize your last two joints. If you're in a hurry and you really got to keep going, just be careful, do the things that I say coming up here, and just go with caution. So we let it dry, we're coming back. I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it to this end of my table, and I'm going to lay it down. Once again, I moved it carefully. I laid one joint all the way down on the table, and I'm just going to rotate this thing down. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. I'm gonna pick it up, rotate it over. Everything I'm doing, I'm putting no pressures on these joints. And I'm gonna rotate, just drop that down, and then I'm gonna roll this down and let this just fall down. I didn't put any pressure on this joint any ways that I did that. I mean, you can imagine if I took this thing and I just popped that apart, ruined. So be careful here. That's why if you let this dry, you're gonna have stronger joints. You still have the capability of really prying that thing apart right now, but not as much if it's not wet. So move this back over to the edge. And same kind of thing here. I'm gonna just get this thing really lined up, see what I'm about to tackle. This looks good. My frame is touching at the bottom, but it's kind of at the top. That's actually, if it's not perfectly straight for you, this is the better way to go because it's easier to hold that and squeeze that in at the top here. You can see that together versus if it was out at the bottom, you gotta squeeze. You can do it, but it's sometimes in our shop, if this just isn't going as nice as you want, having another person out here looking at that, holding that in and squeezing that together while somebody else pounds all that in there and gets that first one in, that's really nice. We do that at times when something just needs to be tweaked over, but this is gonna be really easy. I have a lot of experience, I'm going for it, don't need another person. So, once I get it where I like it, I'm actually just going to lift one side up and get this glue on here. Once again, then when I rotate it down, it'll be right where I want it to be next to that face, and I won't have to try to alter it or tweak it much with the glue on there while it's nice and wet. I like to dry my fingers off as best I can just so that I'm not making a mess, getting glue all over the place.
What do you mean?
All right, squeeze that together. Wipe off the excess just so I can see the joint back here. Everything's lining up, looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and tap this one in. So remember, this is the speed part. Get that thing in there, check this joint. If you gotta move it, move it. You're not gonna worry about things falling off. The edge is easy on this one. Get this thing moved while it's wet. So it slides perfect. I moved it probably a 32nd of an inch that time I was off on that face. So I got it nice and flush again. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my other couple of thumbnails here. Right up. So this frame is still pretty susceptible to a lot of different pressures happening on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the other end down here, and I almost have another little station set up. I'm also not gonna clean that joint over there at this moment, just because I want to finalize this one and get it done without moving that one. So I'm gonna carefully pull this thing across here to my other little makeshift station over here that I have semi set up and ready to go. And this looks pretty good. This is interesting. I know you can't see close up here, but I'm touching at the top on this joint and I'm not touching on the bottom, so it's opposite of what I had over there, but it's going together really nicely. So I can squeeze that with one hand really pretty easily and lock that thing together. So this one now, I don't want to just take this thing and crank it up in the air because I'll be putting a lot of pressure on these joints. So I'm just going to move this slightly out, just as little as I can to get the glue in here. Sometimes I just put a big dollop on there and let it run down. Kind of get my finger in there again. Rub that all over. Get it good and wet. And now I'm going to go ahead and push those together. Get it to where I like what I see here on the back edge. One more thing, do be a little cautious on these. I've actually cut myself, even on a wood frame. Our miters are so good and crisp, I love that, that you can cut yourself, so be careful there. But let's go ahead and pop this one in. If I let go of that, ever so slightly comes out there, but that's holding together pretty good. Once again, if it's coming out more, have somebody help you and hold that in. this, when it drives down, it should pull that joint together really well. Because just by the way that these thumbnails work, it wants to suck that wood together down there. So give it a feel. Oh man, I am really close. I'm not even going to move it out over the edge. Did it. Just took the tiniest little amount of moving back and forth there to knock that in. That is definitely probably the trickiest part of this whole process, is just that fine tuning. I make it look pretty easy. I've done it a lot of times, but just know that is the tricky part. Do it quick on your first one, get it done, and I'll show you something after we get this cleaned up. Just I'll come back to show you kind of what not to do and what to do a little bit more at the end. Okay, so now I need to flip this thing over. This is really nice to have two people to flip this over. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything out of my way to where I can kind of drag this thing as best I can without ruining the frame. I have it on a nice soft table. I don't even want to drag it on the cardboard if I can help it. So nothing's in my way. I'm going to just pick up two sides, drag it over, and I'm going to pull it out. That's just a piece of wood I'm dragging, not going to hurt it. And I'm going to just literally pivot it on the table here. So if I push down, doing no harm to this frame at all, reach down, kind of grab this thing carefully up in the air, set it back on the table, just kind of do the reverse, let it drift down. I put no weird pressures on any of these joints whatsoever. Tip it down, same thing, kind of pull it out, pull it up, set it back down. Just like that. Now I'm going to clean my joints. I want to do this pretty quickly. It's not the end of the world because you got a wet cloth here that will come off even if it dries, but you don't want to let that glue stay on there for, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, hour. It's going to be much harder to clean off than when it's a little bit moist or just getting dried. So get that all off of there. Look for any fingerprints that you might have put on there. Okay. So let me show you what I'm talking about on just a little bit of joint manipulation. When you're moving these joints and you're trying to move these up and down a little bit, you have a lot of ability to separate this joint. Really what you're trying to do is you're trying to just shimmy this joint in an up and down motion by keeping those faces working together, just moving up or moving down, but you're not trying to open it or manipulate it in any way other than just up and down. So I'm not going to do it, but if I wanted to move this side down and this side up, I put my palm on the side that I want to go down, and I put my palm on the bottom of the side I want to come up. And I just do a rocking motion, almost like you're just twisting, bringing out a rag with an up and down motion, and you're just twisting that thing to just rock or just pull it into place, basically. So if I had to do it the other way, I literally would do it this way, and I'd be moving this one down and this one up. So just back and forth, whichever way you gotta go, to just drive those two faces together. Thank you for watching. Hope I taught you some good tricks. Have a great day.